Hello, hello. This is Kimberly and Miranda with Tipsy Mystics, and we are having a chat on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, or evening, depending on where you're located.
So, what are you drinking today, Miranda?
I'm not drinking anything alcoholic. I'm having some lime mint elderflower sparkling mineral water.
Did they fit all that on the label?
Yeah, it's from Whole Foods, so it's fancy.
Well, I don't have alcohol right now. I have a Pellegrino. I'm hearing all sorts of fun sounds in between you and me. Do you hear them?
No, I have these noise canceling headphones. They really do the job.
It sounds like there's a jet going between you and me as we talk. So I don't know. We're going to keep it on there and find out what it sounds like in post.
Who doesn't have a private jet?
No, I don't have a private jet. I don't think I would really want one. They just sit there most of the time.
Yeah, and it sounds like a private upkeep. I did visit Elvis's. Did you get to go on them at Graceland?
It had a seat belt. The bed had a seat belt. And I'm thinking, can you imagine being seat belted to a bed with Elvis?
I'd like to. I'd like to imagine that.
I remember that, and I'm like, oh my God, he was seat belted to a mattress. It's like many girls' dreams. Anyway. So I have Pellegrino here, but I got a White Claw out. And the reason I got a White Claw out, I didn't open it yet, was because I'm having a watermelon theme going on.
Oh, okay. And it's a watermelon flavor?
I didn't even know I had watermelon, but it was in there. And it just seems like a lot of watermelon things are showing up for me. And I have no reference to them. So it's one of those kind of new introductory, hey, human, guess what? Something's coming up and it's going to be fun, and it's got a watermelon in it.
Yeah, and it's very hydrating, whatever it is.
And juicy.
Juicy and hydrating.
Juicy. Yeah.
Well, over here in Philadelphia, it is full-on fall, and it is chilly.
It's chilly for you.
Well, it barely hit 60. That's pretty chilly.
I would be in a parka.
Yeah, it's like 61, 62 maybe. I mean, it is full sun, but it was the same yesterday, and I was out, and it was nice. But it definitely feels like fall. No question about it.
Well, I haven't had a watermelon in a long time. So, and I think that, like, isn't it, now we've hit Labor Day, you can't have watermelon anymore, right? Like white.
You can't wear white. You can't have watermelon. I mean, it probably tastes like crap if you get it. If you get an organic watermelon right now, it's probably not very flavorful.
So we'll just stick with the symbolic watermelon. And, of course, the dark side of me was like, yeah, but a lot of them have seeds that you have to spit out. And my guides are like, no, they make seedless ones now too. And so now how do you explain the fact that there might not be seeds to spit out, that everything might just be juicy?
Right to the good stuff. Right. No impediments.
Exactly. And then you can soak it in vodka.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't done it. But when I think of watermelons, I, of course, think of Gallagher. Do you know Gallagher? He's a comedian.
I've heard of him.
Like the 90s. I don't know if he's still kicking. But he would smash watermelons on stage at his shows. And so everyone in the front few rows would have like tarps and raincoats and stuff on because he would smash watermelons at the end of a show. Like, so I just think of watermelons as like a gimmick. Like, that's not comedy at all. It has nothing to do with it, but like it was just his shtick, right?
It was just his trademarked behavior.
Yeah. like our shtick is that we drink, even though I'm not drinking today. But like, so you need a watermelon as like your shtick for the show. So you need to bring out the White Claw because one of us needs to have some alcohol there.
I know. Well, I haven't had alcohol in a while, and that's totally fine. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, do I want to break that streak just because of the symbolic watermelon? That's the thing. So I'm staring at it, and it's more like going to the point where you're like, do we really want this, or is it just habit?
I know. That's where I'm at. But I was finally feeling so good today that I was like, I don't need anything right now.
Now see, alcohol is supposed to be a depressant, right? So, but we always, at least in the United States, it's like the party drink, right? It's the party drink. You go out with your friends and you have fun with it. But then there's a little bit of an escape involved too.
Absolutely.
Like,
yep.
Yeah. Like, let's forget about our troubles and let's just, go down some watermelon White Claw.
Which is most of 2020. You needed to smash a watermelon and have a drink to get the feelings out.
Yeah. So there was a lot of escape for that, which brings me to something I had on my list today about habits. And, with my watermelon seeds that you're going to have to find some and spit them out, I'm realizing that sadness can be a habit.
Oh my God. Absolutely. You're right.
All right. So what do you think about that? Well, I'm drinking my Pellegrino first.
Hydrate before you gyrate. It's been such a habit, and we've talked about this before, where I so much I've been, we go through this sort of dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it, where it's just all healing all the time, and I've been going through it since like 2017 non-stop for almost 4 years now. And you just start to expect it. So it's like a habit. It's like, okay, I know myself. You start to know yourself. Once you start going down that rabbit hole, whereas most of my life before that, you kind of hide from the emotions, right? You have the drink, go out with your friends, you always have people around, you don't sit with yourself, right? So then when I started to, and you start doing that for 3 years, then that becomes the habit. Then be like, okay, what's next, right? I'm always going to be pulling a tower card every morning or something, right? You just have this expectation of what's next. All right, what's next? And we've talked about it before, where I was like, for a while, like, okay, I'm gonna have a scary day. And then when it didn't come, I was like, well, what the hell? Am I done?
What's wrong with my scary day? You don't even know you're dead, right? You're like, no, something good happened today. I must be dead.
Yeah, right. I just was waiting for it and it didn't happen. And I really feel like these past 3 weeks was a big, and it wasn't hard. I mean, it gets to the point where it's not hard. It's not scary. There's no deep sadness. You cry literally for no reason. I just had to get the emotion out. So I cried. Like, I have no idea what that was for, but cool. It's gone. And then, today I just feel pretty damn fantastic and I feel good about it. So I don't need to, wallow and drown in my sorrows with alcohol or not. I can just drink it because it's fun.
Yes. And you look like a little magnolia girl there because, you got the sleeveless, the shoulder, what they called off the shoulder.
Yeah.
You look like a little nymph.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I'll be a nymph.
It's a good nymph look. I like that.
I'll be a nymph. So what do you have to say about sadness habit?
I sometimes wonder what I'm going to replace it with. Like, I remember I was taking a walk. I didn't take a walk today, but I took a walk yesterday, and I was just like realizing I have so much freedom that I don't know what to do with it. And I'm
overwhelmed.
And I'm like, this is the most beautiful place I've been in a very long time. Nothing is going wrong. I paid off all my debt. And I'm looking around, I'm like, everything's going really well. And then, of course, you look up to the sky because Chicken Little. Something's going to fall out of the sky. Something's got to fall out of the sky.
When is that piano going to hit me?
Right. And so there's been the nudges from guides, and I've gotten some new guides lately that are a little more blunt and a little more direct about, all right, you want to learn this stuff. You want to bring back all these abilities that you had before. You got to start stretching your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a project that you and I are working on, which I'm sure we'll announce sometime soon, that is really a stretch of the imagination, because it doesn't seem to be, at least on my timeline, anything anyone has ever done before.
Yeah.
And so now we're thinking, you got the whole, well, who am I to think I could pull this off? Right. Mm-hmm. And then you got the higher self. It's like, this is nothing. Are you crazy? Right? Yeah. And I was listening to, we're going to go into Dolores Cannon a little bit later, but I was listening to Dolores Cannon this morning, The Convoluted Universe, the first one.
Okay.
And I have not heard this book before, but I was in that same time. I had lives during the same time periods in Atlantis that she was discussing. And she was discussing how basically Atlantis, they got bored. They got to the point where they couldn't imagine any further in a good way. And they started to kind of imagine in maybe some negative ways without the honoring of other life forces. So they started with experimenting with animals and things like that, and that's where our legends from, the Centaurs and the half, the snake with the human face and all those mm-hmm. creatures that all those awesome etchings are made of back in the 1400s. And so those were products of trials that were done in Atlantis. And so here's me, and I'm listening to this. I'm like, oh, shit. You see, this is what happens when you start to imagine too much. You start going down some dark alleys. You start crossing, horses and people against their will. And my guides are like, hello, stop. That's a choice that you made, right? If you had a life back then, and this resonates with you, and you feel that, oh, I can't believe that happened, and shit, I think I was there feeling.
Yeah.
That now I'm coming back with the ability and the knowledge that I value life now. And that would never happen with my imagination now.
Because we've done it.
And it didn't work out well at all.
Didn't work out well at all.
So
pretty poorly
that stuff went, and a little bit sad that we're dealing with that from a collective standpoint. Now, this is easy when you and I and others can meditate and recognize that, okay, there's a collective energy that has areas that need balancing, right? Mm-hmm. And then we can say, all right, we're going to contribute our portion of this to the rebalancing. But there's also the rest of the population that is also carrying these memories with them unconsciously.
Absolutely.
And that's when things start happening, and they can't, they're like we talked about in the last episode, there's no way I would create that for myself, right? Well,
yeah.
Yeah, you did, right? And so now your soul is aware of this, but it's not exactly, those belief systems aren't exactly ready for that to come up into the consciousness to be dealt with.
No, but this lifetime and this period of time is when we're integrating all of those little parts of us that we left behind in 500 other lives on Earth, many of them, in Atlantis or Lemuria or Lumania or on other planet systems. And so we're going through a lot of those maybe unbalanced is a good way to say it. There's unbalanced ways of dealing with life And those things are coming up for us right now, because now on Earth is the time when so many of those things are really coming to a head, and we're clearing out a lot of those things, because I think you've talked about it before. It's just like a little piece of you, of your soul, that is still stuck in that time with regrets and fears and all this negative, dense energies. And you have to bring them up within the context of 2020 Earth. And so all of these things are triggering these really, really deep, past, not past, because those are experiences we're living out in other nows that are at the same time. So we're bringing them up to deal with them right now. So anything you see out there, like, you just got to have compassion for people, because they don't realize that they're, bringing up the horrific things that happened and the crap that they did when they were, mixing people and horses. Right?
Yeah. They always made the centaurs look kind of angry. Like, why did you turn me into a half horse, half human? So, the reason is that it was done against their will, apparently, right?
I feel a little bit of pissed there.
You probably got some pain going on too, in the fact that you got your cellular structure redesigned by someone pretty much against your will.
They sort of like bred them, right? So, and they bred them so they would fight, from what I understand. So if you're going to breed something to like throw them in a ring and fight for your entertainment, you're going to breed some pissed offness into them. Right?
Pissed offness, yeah,
and not treat them very like they do to poor little puppies now. My friend had a dog that she it was a Rottweiler mix that she rescued, and she did not like people in winter weather wear, like gloves and coats and stuff, because people would tape those things around themselves and then fight the dog so that they would attack them, but they wouldn't get hurt.
I have never heard of this, and I'm so glad I wasn't on that timeline.
So her dog, who was the sweetest little thing, if she saw a kid, like they were on a walk and she saw a kid in like winter clothes, she would attack the kid.
Oh, great.
Which is usually the sweetest thing, but anyway, yeah. So that's what they did to these centaurs, who now are pissed off. So that's why they look pissed off. But I do have a funny story about centaurs.
Oh, good, Cal.
It's totally random. So I went to Penn State, and we're a big football school, as I think everyone knows. And one year we had the homecoming game, and it was around Halloween, and I thought I was a unicorn that year. I had like a children's unicorn top, and it had like wings, and it had a stuffed unicorn head on top that you wore. So I cut a Penn State t-shirt so the wings could go through, and I put it on top. Anyway, so it was a unicorn. And I was thinking, everyone's going to be in costume, right? I was wrong. So it was like me and a handful of other people among the, 45,000 people going to this game, walking around. So anytime anyone would see, my friends would see somebody in another costume, it was either mate with the unicorn or fight the unicorn, right?
Oh, you're bringing some Atlantis along with you.
We were slightly tipsy. And then while we were waiting in line to go to our seats, we got in a very existential conversation about what the unicorn, Maranda as the unicorn, would mate with. Centaur, I said yes.
Well, yeah.
Just a regular horse, no. Because, and everyone would be like, oh, are you a bunny? First of all, I don't look anything like a bunny. I have a horn. And I would get pets, and I'd be like, no, I'm a mythological being, and I can speak English. I'm not a bunny. But yeah, so I did have a very existential conversation about what mating with centaurs and horses and what other mythical beings I would mate with.
And so you call this random, but that even back in college, you were preparing for this conversation right here.
That's right. Yeah.
The way it works. And so we were talking about
But the difference between Atlantis and that conversation was that mine stayed at a conversation.
your stayed in the conversation?
Mine was just a conversation. Back in Atlantis, they actually did it.
Oh, no,
right?
they actually did
so
it.
we
No,
were
I
being
get it.
creative and
I
just
get it.
being silly.
I get
They
it.
did it.
But
And
I
then
mean,
they
just to
did
think what they, about mating an
Yeah.
animal. That's been around a long time, I'm sure. But anyway, speaking of animals, I want to tell my squirrel story.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to you. So I love squirrels and Miranda doesn't. And what did you call them? The mosquitoes of the mammal world?
No, so
or
they're
what?
the flies. They're the flies
Oh,
of the mammal world.
the
I hate
flies.
flies. You'll see some here, I'm sure, on camera because I've got like 10 in my house right now.
Imagine that.
Anyway, so squirrels, I feel the same about squirrels as a mammal as I do about flies.
And I love squirrels, and I think they're adorable and fluffy, and they're always eating peanuts right in front of me, and I love them. So,
I do want to preface, I love a chipmunk. Chipmunk, love.
oh no, what the hell is the difference? There's almost no
Totally
difference. They look totally almost the same.
No, but they don't do the same things. They aren't everywhere. Chipmunks are like a fun surprise. We don't have chipmunks everywhere. Squirrels, however.
Well, you're
anyway,
biased.
Go back to your squirrel story. Yeah,
no, you're biased. Okay, so you and your bias. I love squirrels, and I have a lot of squirrels that come out and see me when I go for my little route around town and things like that. And now Miranda and I had this conversation. I don't like squirrels. They're the flies of the mammal world. And then lo and behold, squirrels disappear from my world because I'm thinking, well, I like Miranda and Miranda doesn't like them. So maybe I was wrong in liking squirrels. Now, this is all unconscious, right? I'm not really thinking this, consciously, because then I'd be like, that's bullshit, right? But subconsciously, because we're still programmed to get to trust the opinion of something outside of us before we trust our own, I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't like squirrels either. So squirrels literally disappeared from my world. Now, one day goes by, I'm like, there's no squirrels. 2 days goes by, I'm like, why are there no squirrels? 3 days goes by, I'm like, what the is going on? There are no squirrels. So day number 4, I'm like, I'm going out and I'm going to find a goddamn squirrel. So I take a little bit of a different route. I'm going all over the place.
Full squirrel hunting gear, right?
I was squirrel hunting, not a squirrel.
Get a peanuts.
I was begging. I'm like, come on, universe. I didn't mean to totally make them extinct on my timeline. I want to see squirrels again. So I go to my favorite tree. I'm like, I know squirrels. I'm going home. I'm dejected. I go to my favorite tree, which I always look up at the top. I look all the way up. It's a big pine tree just to make sure it's getting water. And there's one squirrel right above me on the branch looking down. Just looking. It's staring me down pretty much like, yeah, I'm not coming down there. I'm not going to give you that pleasure. But I'm like, okay, thank God at least there are squirrels back on my timeline. So I go home, go out the next day. No squirrels. So I had to go home and meditate. Fast end to the story. Went home and meditated. I'm like, I don't care what Miranda wants on her timeline. She wants Swan Lake. She wants swans in the back of her house. So she's got every right to love swans and hate squirrels. And I have every right to love squirrels and hate swans, which I kind of do. But so the squirrels came back. I went out to get the mail today. There was one sitting right in front of the mailbox.
Okay.
All adorable and like, and then he took off. But it was a long story. I'm sorry. But the fact that I literally banished an entire species from my timeline, or at least from my purview, based on a thought I had.
Yeah.
And so we really are truly that powerful. And I have one more story and then I'll let you talk. No, this one's a good one because it's about flies.
Go ahead.
Flies. So you hate flies, and now
Yeah.
your house has 10 of them
And
in there.
because you're always shaming me about killing bugs, I've not killed any of them. I haven't killed
They're
them.
breeding. They're happy. They make good company. After you get used to them, they stop swarming around your face. Anyway.
They touched me. One of them touched me the other day.
So
anyway, go ahead.
I was talking to you online and I said there's a fly and it's hanging around my computer, right? And then I go into a Zoom meeting, a whole company Zoom meeting, and there's a fly swimming around my head. And then all of a sudden the fly disappears and I see it on the screen swirling around my boss's head. And he's swatting it away. He's like, where'd that come from? And I'm like, oh shit, I said my boss a fly. But this is an example of how illusory our life is, right?
Yeah.
We are playing games with ourselves all the time.
Yeah, like there's no reason I should have 10 flies in my house right now. Like, where are they coming from?
Form. What are you thinking about?
I don't know.
I hate flies. That's what you're thinking about.
I know. It's because you had all these fly stories, and I was like, well, at least I don't have any. And all of a sudden, all of the flies.
All of the flies.
What you focus on, right? What you resist persists.
That is true.
At least they're just annoying and not.
It's not like scorpions or anything.
No.
I mean, it could be worse, right?
Yeah. It could be a lot worse.
Okay. Well, I want to bring up one thing that I want you to talk about because I don't know much about it, but
okay. Hope I know something about it.
RBG.
Oh, my lady. Yeah.
I want to hear about her because I don't know all that much about her. And I know that she's a light worker. And I got some information about later. So tell me about her.
Right. So first of all, we're talking about Ruth Bader Ginsberg, who this is Sunday. She died on Friday. This past Friday. And I did see Amanda Ellis did a video saying that she will be able to channel her at some point. But I mean, I don't really have anything spiritual to say about her other than she was very much a 5D person. She was she had everything against her. She was a female in a time where you weren't allowed to be a female and do anything, let alone be a female who had all of those things she wasn't allowed to do changed, right? And she was a very calm person. She was a very allowing person. I mean, she was still friends with people on the other side of the aisle. And to go through the things that she went through and still rise to the top, you have to know, not believe, know that you, as a female, as someone who everyone says you shouldn't have these things, you have to know that you are worthy and be so set in that fact that like you will not stop until everyone else knows it. Right? So the things she did for females, like I mean, I keep talking about me buying a house right now. That wouldn't be possible without RBG. She made it possible for a woman to have credit without a male co-signer, to be able to sign a mortgage.
Ooh, times have changed.
I mean, Ruth. Men were so, I was just thinking about this. Men were so fearful that society as they knew it would collapse if someone like me as a woman could have credit on their own, own a home on their own. I mean, so the fear around society collapsing. Wow. And, you know, someone like Ruth was like, yes, society, you should be afraid society should collapse. And
look,
I mean,
everything's fine.
right? And I mean, that's a lot of what we're going through now is this societal collapse, and the people who have benefited from it, which is mostly men, right? And people with, money and privilege. They should be afraid if they need it to stay that way, right? Because society is going to collapse and we need it to. And what a beautiful fire. What else can we throw on it, right? But I was just thinking about how she really embodied this 5D version of ourselves, right? I mean, we think of all these sort of religious people like Buddha and Jesus and Gandhi as embodying that. But look at this tiny little Jewish woman who really showed us how to do it in a non-spiritual way, right? Bring those things to a political arena and to our normal everyday lives, right?
Yeah.
Especially as women. She saw the value in, the divine feminine and the yin energy, and how, the strength that she had as a female to sit there among men with the calm and the knowing and the knowledge. I mean, you can't think that this woman didn't have direct cosmic intelligence, like a direct line, right? Yeah. With that calm and that knowing that's the level of intelligence that you have to have to be able to do these things. So I think we can just look to her to be like, okay, this is maybe what leaders will look like in New Earth, in a 5D Earth, right? This is what a leader will look like, and it will definitely be far more feminine, divine feminine, yin-based going forward, with that connection to our higher knowledge and our higher selves and our higher knowing of worthiness, and going within as opposed to, looking outward. And I just think she's just such a good icon to look at in that way. If you can't look at Jesus, look at RBG. Well,
she dressed a lot better than he did too.
Oh my God. So
her suits were amazing.
So chic.
Yeah. That's that. I give her credit for that. I don't follow politics and all that, but I know that she was always a positive example for women. I know that. I know she had balls, as far as standing up for what she believed in, and like you said, the knowing. So I talked to, when you told me about that on Friday, I went to my guides, and they're like, oh, don't you worry. She's coming back fast, and she knows the law. Right? So meaning that there's a lot of public figures that are leaving the planet unexpectedly like this. Now I know hers was probably a little more expected, but but they're coming right back. There's not that 300 years of in between life review and all that stuff, because they don't want to miss what's going on here. There's an awful lot of good stuff that's coming to this planet. And so they're coming back with all of those skills and abilities already activated. They don't need to remember them again like we did. So she's probably going to be like your Doogie Howser of lawyers, right? And then she, they're going to be like
little baby Ruth. Also a candy bar. So maybe that candy bar was a premonition.
Wasn't it the baseball guy? Yeah. But you never know. You never know what timeline you're on, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Anyway, I think that's fantastic. And the whole, I was going through I was working with Seth, and Seth is very straightforward when it comes to teaching you the mechanics. And he was explaining how there are different kinds of souls and how they show up on Earth and why they show up on Earth vary widely. So I looked at, he said, he calls me by a name, but I'm not going to say what it is online, but he says, no,
you guys
it's
have
not
pet names?
No, it's not like that. It's
okay.
No. It's a wide name that my soul uses.
Oh, okay.
And he said, you are the kind of person that like shows up in your mom's womb, like either right before you're about to be born or just as you're being born. Like you are like the, oh shit, I'm going to be late and miss it kind of soul, because you don't love the physical all that much. You basically coming to Earth because you're sort of, he didn't say it like a remedial student, but it was kind of like you prefer your existences outside of the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to ascend, there's physicality required.
Yeah.
No, with us, not with everybody, but with our path.
Right now, yeah.
Right.
Everything goes through the physical. All of it is.
Right. So I keep coming back. This is my 867th life. I keep coming back because I get frustrated. Tell me if this sounds like me. I'm a Scorpio, right? I get frustrated because things don't happen fast enough. I'm like, I had the thought. Where the hell is it? Why is it not here? Because when you're in the non-physical a lot, it's immediate.
Which is the only way I've ever been until this life. This is my only physical life.
Okay, so after 860, almost 66 lives in 55 years, you'd think I would learn?
You would learn, yeah.
No. Anyway.
Can you imagine how hard it is for me? That's why neither of us have much patience.
Well, Earth is a place of patience, apparently, because, I mean, the whole idea of slowing down the manifestation into linear time, into progressive slides, as you would call it, or frames, is what we're doing because we want to experience all that joy of waiting. Oh, pretty, I get to wait more. Anyway.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Freaking journey. So he was telling me that, and I started to get depressed. I'm like, great. I can't even freaking manifest. What am I doing on Earth? And like, why can't I go? I want to be a tree. I just basically, can I just go be a tree right now? And they're like, no, we want you to spend time in the physical. We want you to spend time enjoying what you're doing right now in this moment in the physical without having to visualize something that you don't have with you right now.
Yeah.
And so that was this morning. It feels like it was about 6 years ago, but it was this morning. So I whipped up a zucchini and sun-dried tomato tart.
Sounds delightful.
Right. A big alba mushroom omelet. The maki tahini cheesecake.
You made that cheesecake?
I made the cheesecake.
Is it still like?
It's still hardening, but
okay.
This baby, I made the cheesecake and 2 batches of pickles.
Wow.
So I'm like, this is all food related, right? So I'm like, okay, if I'm on
that's the best part of the physical. It's the only part I like.
I'm sure there's more.
Well, okay. Some other stuff I like.
Anyway, so the whole idea was to forget about the whole goddamn why isn't this happening and why isn't this happening, because that's just focusing on one particular timeline, which may not be your particular energy right now, right? So to sit there and say, I'm focusing on something that's not my energy is basically sending you away from that path.
Absolutely, yeah.
Towards it. So if you're, when we're allowed to have parties again, we'll have a party. And I'll make the maki cheesecake and a tart. And now that I know how to learn, I learned how to do all these things. And it only took like 2 hours and I was done. Anyway.
All of those things?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to have the ingredients.
Oh, well, that was already set up. Yeah, I mean, that was already set up. Because I knew that eventually I was going to have sort of a little bit of a meltdown. And I was going to need to get myself back in the physical.
Yeah, I did a lot of baking during quarantine.
Interesting. Now, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do baking when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're anxious? When do you bake?
Well, I eat all of my emotions. So all of the above.
Okay.
But I've I'm trying to eat a lot healthier for years now. But so I'm like, if I'm going to eat whatever this is, right? Eat my feelings, I should be the one making it, right? I should have to put the effort into it. And so I'll make, paleo, whatever. And I've perfected my brownies.
Oh, good. Well, that's good to know.
And the last time I made my tahini date cookies, they were really good because originally I was using a vegan recipe, but I finally put an egg in them and it
makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So they're not too crumbly and stuff. So just throw an egg in it, and now they're really good and moist and stuff. So tahini, guys, put in, bake with it.
Tahini is
so good.
Amazing.
Really
just
is.
Those little itty bitty seeds you wouldn't even imagine.
We have been sleeping on the sesame seed. I put it in on everything. Like a tuna steak with sesame seeds on it.
Oh,
good.
My goodness.
It's good.
It's good.
Yeah. So,
so what else?
Tell me
about your house thing.
I don't know if I have a house thing. So I found a house that I think this one is it.
Wait, what? Is that the one you showed me?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one with the beautiful oxidized copper roof.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. It's like all of the things that I would want.
So let's talk about that.
But still need some personalization.
Because you wanted to buy a house that you could fix up, right?
Yeah,
so
and
that was the timeline you were aiming at.
Yeah, I was thinking I would need to do a lot of work. But this house, it's almost like so much of, it still needs work, like new kitchen, but a lot of it is more
cosmetic.
Yeah, cosmetic, right? And as far as I know, obviously it could need more work than it appears, but it's almost like I designed it myself.
Imagine that.
So it's a lot of the outer stuff is pre-designed by me. Like I went back to 1850 and designed a lot of things in this house. So it's like, okay, maybe I already did a lot of the work, right? So it's not going to take 4 months. Maybe it's something I can do and get done in 2 months. But I'm waiting to figure out some more money stuff, and I need to redo my pre-approval. And I'm also waiting for this house to go down in price because it's still too high, but it's been lowered it's been up since June, and they've been lowering the price every a month or every 2 weeks since June. And it never went off the market and came back on, or at least it doesn't say that it's listed, but usually it says that.
So it's been going down steadily.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like somebody put in an offer and then it fell through. It just looks like it's been steadily going down since June. And it's a great location.
Was it something you ever would have thought of that there would be a home that would be
right there? No.
Right there, and the kind of home you were looking for?
No. So there's this street, and it's called Bells Mill Road, and I used to always stop on it because there's a trailhead there that goes across the street. So it's like a back windy road, and during rush hour, I've been stuck on that road many days because you get stuck with people crossing at the trailhead because everyone has to stop, and in horses. And one time I actually saw someone on one of those old tiny bicycles with a giant front wheel.
Oh, cool. Okay,
Yeah, but
so
this
maybe
is
that was your day back in 1850 when you were designing the house.
Well, the house was actually moved. It was built on the Schuylkill River, and then it was picked up its entirety and moved to where it is now. But anyway, but the old-timey bike was extra weird because it's a trail, so like that doesn't seem trail ready.
Sounds like you had a little bit of an anachronism there.
Yeah, right. Anyway, this road has all these like gorgeous old giant mansions on it. And I'm just like, God, to live on Bell's Mill Road would be the absolute dream. But obviously I don't want to live in a giant mansion by myself. That's a little excessive.
So the universe
so this street is like, if Bell's Mill Road continued past Ridge Road, which is a main road, it's called, I forget, School Lane or something like that. Anyway, so it's Bell's Mill Road continued.
School like lessons?
Oh, never mind. It's called Spring Lane. I made that up. Spring Lane. I was thinking S. Anyway, but it's a continuation of Bell's Mill. It just changed its name.
But so it's universe, like, that's what I want to talk about, because I think you're missing a whole lot of this. I think you're missing it. Like what? A big, gigantic gift that was like, it seems to me, from what I know, you're like an example of.
Did you see that asshole just fly by?
Watch to see if he shows up here. Send him over here, because I don't have any flies today. So if you get one that shows up, then you have 9 and I have 1. But what I'm saying is that you were focusing on certain timelines.
Yeah.
And you were saying, this is what I want. And that's totally cool to say, this is what I want. These are the details that I want. This is all of that. But there's also this ginormous other area of stuff that you never thought of that would also satisfy you. Like you'd be like, shit, I never thought of that. I never would have imagined that this house could have been designed. Like, it looks like it was designed by me.
Yeah.
Right.
I would have never thought that.
Right. So I think that this is like, what a great example of you manifesting something better than you could imagine. Now you've got yourself held up a little bit in some areas, like the price still has to go down, right? You're not comfortable with the price and all that. And that's totally cool.
But I have other stuff to work on, like working with some stock stuff to get some more money. And my pre-approval is like, needs to be redone. So I need like 2 weeks before I'd be ready to like put in an offer somewhere. So it's got 2 weeks to maybe get closer to where I'd want it to be. And then I'll have more money, even if it doesn't get as low as I want it to be, I'll have more money to be able to spend on it myself. And so as long as I'm not looking at it with fear, which there's been fear in everything I've looked at before, which is why I wasn't even looking in this area, because I was like, taxes, and I'm uncomfortable with paying all this. Philly taxes are really high and stuff. So, but if I'm not worried about money, then this is it. So we'll wait 2 weeks and see where we're at once I figure my other stuff out. And maybe it's perfect, and maybe I get it and everything just like zips right through.
Maybe. What do you think about that word though? Maybe.
Good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm still open to the possibility of something better. You know what I mean? I'm just allowing things to be, right? And I think that this is a really good maybe, right? All these other things, I'm like, well, is this the one? Right? Like I needed a definitive.
It was urgent. It was more urgent.
It was more urgent. And I just, like I said, I'm just really in a place, especially today, where I feel really solid. I don't have any fear about anything. And I have a lot more patience.
How about the flies?
I'm letting them be. I haven't killed them. I even held the door open for them. I was like, guys, come on. I'm holding the door open for you to fly outside. And they didn't do it.
Maybe the energy inside is more attractive to them than the energy outside.
Probably.
I mean, you know, what you resist persists. Didn't you say that like a few minutes ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. But
Anyway.
yeah, maybe I don't think I don't mean it in like a bad way. I'm just trusting that if it's meant to be, it'll be. It doesn't need, I'm not putting any needs to be. I need to get it at this price. I need to get it this. Like what I need is like maybe a little bit more time to figure some other things out.
Good.
And then maybe it'll be perfect. So maybe everything will work out.
I've been reading again, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, so, wow.
I mean, I read that a long time ago, right? Where they had.
Isn't that like what Abraham Hicks couple read?
Oh, everybody. Yeah. I mean, it's
before they started channeling
on manifestation, that and Seth. Yeah. So it's literally one of the first books on manifestation. And if you know me, you know I have a big beef with the Industrial Revolution, and he was just post-Industrial Revolution, post-Depression even, and still talking about this stuff. And I don't know if you know his story, but he had a son who was born without ears. So he didn't have ears. He just had little tiny holes in his head, but he also didn't have the ear stuff inside either.
So he couldn't hear. He
couldn't hear. But Napoleon Hill was like, oh yeah, nuh-uh, that's not happening. Yeah, my son's going to hear. And he was like, I don't care what the doctors say, my son is going to hear. So he basically, he even calls it, I'm not using my own words. He says, I told my son a little white lie, and I didn't actually ever tell him that he couldn't hear. I just treated him like he could hear. And I talked to him like he could hear. And his son ended up hearing, despite the fact he doesn't have, he didn't have most of the major equipment. So I have a fly. I don't know if you saw it, but I have a fly.
Hopefully I have one less fly.
Thank you. But what was amazing about that book was that he's saying all the things about the law of attraction. He's using all the universal laws, the law of deliberate intent, where you're saying, this is what I want. This is what I want. But he was more on this is the only timeline, and I won't take anything less. And that was just because, they were of a different mindset back then in 1927, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So, but all of the examples in there are of men, which, there was a little trigger in me. He didn't use any women in his examples, but women weren't allowed to be famous and popular back then unless they were working in a hospital, right? So he was all about, I'm not taking no from anybody about anything, and gung-ho, like bullish about getting what you want and not giving up. And I started to be like, yeah, I'm not really loving this book. And then he said one word, and the one word is what turned it around. And that word is faith, right? So faith is a charged word in the English language, right? You got all the religious stuff going on with it. But what it really is knowing.
Yeah.
Right? It's the knowing that your higher self wants you, like we say, to win, wants you to have everything that you want. And, back in 1927, faith was our version of knowing. And so, I don't know. I just thought that was such a fantastic book. And there are so many things in there that ring true. Abraham, we're all borrowing from the same information. It's not original from anybody. But Abraham does talk about that a lot. Cryon, talks a lot about that, and Seth as well, where they're more like, you Focus on a good timeline, even if it's not the same timeline. If you really need to do your steps and kind of say, I know this is going to happen, and it could happen. I could get a house that I have to work a lot on, or I could get a house that I have to work a little bit on, or I can work on a house from scratch, or I can have a house that's exactly like I wanted. And all of them are okay.
Yeah.
Right? All of them work out for you and make you feel like you're expansive. So that's what I had to say about that.
Yeah.
He's a badass.
And I've seen all of those timelines, you know? They keep giving me options, and I'm like, that's not the one that I want, that I choose. And then they're like, here's another one. But I'm in a place where I trust, regardless of what I choose, it'll work out.
So you get to go on like a 360 like home tour in the astral plane. You're in the ethers. You're just like float. Did you ever float around? I have a great story about that.
I mean, in my mind, I'm designing the whole house. So I walk through in my head. I don't know how that's different in the astral, but
it's the same. Yeah. I mean, you're literally viewing out of your non-physical eyes. That
I have not done, but I could try it. I did like a remote viewing little session in a online class I was taking, which was really cool because they just give you like a random place in England, right? Like a little town. And so you imagine it, and then you go after you come out and you go and you look at it on Google Maps. You can do that now, right? With Google Maps. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not direct, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
Like, I was standing right here. I was looking down this alley. And to my right, I saw like a pub with flower boxes. In my mind, the flower boxes weren't the same shape. Like, they were rectangular and they were circle in real life. But it was just like, but I saw these things, and I was looking down this alley, and I saw this behind me, and
well, that doesn't mean that the flower boxes weren't the way you saw them in another timeline, right? I mean,
sure, right.
People change flower boxes all the time.
I know, but it was close enough that it was like I saw a flower box there.
Right. Now, when I was a kid, I got a fly crawling on me. When I was a kid, I grew up where you were, and she's all grossed out. I grew up where you were. And if anyone knows that area, New Hope in Bucks County has a lot of antique stores. And I was probably, 8 or 9. And I remember I'm like, oh, I want to go see some of the antique stores. We never get enough time to see them all because, it takes so long. So I go to sleep that night, and my little youngster body takes off, and I find myself searching around in the stores at night. And I just go through the walls, and I'm going and I'm looking through, like I'm up high, and I'm looking at the things hanging on the walls. And I don't know if you know what hex signs are, but I love hex signs. They're what the Amish use. They put them above their barns.
To like ward off a hex?
Yeah, they're hexes. Okay. And so I love hex signs, and I was looking at all the ones that they had painted by the Amish. So I visited there for a while. I went through some linens that they had on the ground. And when I woke up and I told my mom, she's like, oh, well, we should go see it, right? So, of course, my mom was very okay with all that stuff. So the next time we went into the store, and there was the hex signs, and there was the little basket full of linens down on the floor. And I just thought that was like, I can see why you could misuse that ability. Like, you gotta where you're going with
something naughty.
Anyway, so I'm thinking that that were we talking about Atlantis earlier, right? With the some of the abilities that were kind of abused a little bit, and that is one of those where you really have to, when you awaken those abilities in yourself, you're going to have to look at yourself and say, am I going to use these for the greater good? Or am I going to use them just because I want a wild ride here for a little while? Right? Whether it's breeding animals with human faces or, remote viewing in places that you're not welcome.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, it would really change real estate during COVID.
Right? You could, that's what I was saying. You could do the 360.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, we've got people who are saying the name of Davy Green, the name of our channel is scary. Well, I'm not scared. Are you scared?
Of awakening?
Yeah.
No.
I'm not afraid of awakening.
I'm not afraid of anything.
Not even flies.
I'm not afraid of them. I might be annoyed by them.
And hello, BB. Nice to see you. And so I think that's good. I think we had a nice little chat. Anything else you want to say?
No. R.I.P. RBG.
Oh, I know. Well, I know she's coming back, and I know it's going to be badass, and she's going to be dressed. We're going to know because she's got the whole outfit thing down.
I know.
Right? At a young age, and the coif.
And the cool glasses.
The glasses do it. Yeah,
they really do.
They make you look
they
smart.
Help.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the Tipsy Mystics this time. So until next time, my friends, cheers.
Cheers.